Another day, only to scream into the night. Nothing ever tries to change, even if I want to realize. 'Cause I've been sitting here, same old ways, taking off without the same mistake. Darling, when you go away, it won't be as simple for you.
Yo, guys. It is Old Man G here, RDS, back again. And we're here for a Manchester United sales update. First of all, most apologies and cameras off. I've had a very, very long and tiring weekend working. So I'm not in the best of presentable states, let's put it that way. But I am joined by Tom, journalist Tom, who obviously was on last week, giving us a really great and concise update on the transfer process. And I brought him back on only because he's a good mate of mine, but also because he seems to be the voice and a sense of reason when it comes to giving us some clear information rather than a lot of the speculative nonsense seems to be going across a lot of the journalistic world about the transfer. So remember to like, share, and subscribe to Devils 2 Joe. Follow us on Twitter, United X, and smash that notification button. Plays Manchester United news and more. And also get your questions in the chat as well, because of course, there's a lot of stuff that let's go into. Shout out to, I think it's K27 says, "Hey, artist, who need the name of your intro song?" Yeah, I'll find it. I'll let you know. Send me a DM. Let me know. So Tom, buddy, how you doing? You okay?
Yeah. Even everybody. I'm doing well, G. Hope the same for yourself. Anyway.
Yeah, no. Good. And like I said, appreciate you coming on. Always appreciate you giving your thoughts on the whole Manchester United, the ongoing saga that is Manchester United Football Club. So I mean, let's get straight into it, Tom. I mean, obviously the deadline happened last Friday, and there's been a lot of talk about Sir Jim's offer, and you can already see it on Twitter where he's been called a rat and betrayed because of essentially the idea of potentially keeping the Glazers in charge. Do you have any thoughts on Sir Jim's offer to Manchester United and what that means?
Well, effectively, what Sir Jim has done, he's taken the minority groups model, if you like, where he wants to come in more from a partial sale. It's, if you like, not a minority offer. It's not a full takeover offer. It's a meet in the middle offer, where at this current time, with the finances that he has in place, he cannot afford to buy the 69% of Manchester United. Now, just to give a bit of context, before Manchester United had the second round of bids, there was talks that was held with both the Ineos Group delegation, which was led by Sir Jim Ratcliffe himself, and the Qatari delegation, which was led by Sheikh Shabazz, one of Sheikh Jassim's closest and personal advisors, who's working alongside him within the Qatari delegation group on their bid. Both of the groups, before the second round of bids, met up at Old Trafford. Before then, you had the first round of bids. This was when you knew who was in the process, who wanted to come out publicly, and who wanted to sit in the dark and stay quiet. When you had the first round of bids, you had Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sheikh Jassim, who were the two public bidders, and still to this day are the only two public bidders. When you had those bids come in, all they could base the valuation of what Manchester United was worth was off of the New York Stock Exchange. From the understanding as of right now, when Sir Jim Ratcliffe came into this process, when he made his personal statement, he stated, "I want to buy the 69% share of the Glazer families. So I want to buy all of the Glazers out for 69% of the football club. So I just want to control what they control right now, all of them." Sheikh Jassim, on the other hand, came out and stated, I want 100% of the club. I want to buy the Glazers out for what I can now of the 69%, and then I want to further try and buy the 31% out of the other minority stakeholders that own stakes in Manchester United, which would take a couple more months upon purchase. From what's happened, Sir Jim Ratcliffe went to Old Trafford with a valuation of what he believed and the Ineos Group believed Manchester United was worth. They have undervalued what Manchester United was worth at that stage because they didn't know the full financials. They didn't know what Manchester United could grow to. Essentially, all we knew at that period of time was the Glazer family had a £6 billion evaluation. And from that £6 billion evaluation, people didn't know if there was bluffing or if they could actually prove it should be worth that. And from what all of the different groups have seen, they have had to massively and drastically improve their offers. Therefore, the Glazer family have some sort of proof to show that Manchester United should be worth near or at that exact number. Now, when Sir Jim Ratcliffe went there, he underestimated how much it would be valued at. And therefore, when he's valued it out at 69%, because he has undervalued it, he has therefore got the wrong finances in place for what he believed it would have been worth. Therefore, he has undervalued himself and he has undervalued what he actually needs to buy the full 69%. Therefore, now he is too deep in the process. The cost of borrowing nowadays with the finances that are working with inside of some banks, especially on Wall Street, the interest payments as well that go up on loans and bonds are going out of crazy and going out of the market. And Sir Jim Ratcliffe cannot stretch any more money out of JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs to back him. And he doesn't have any cash reserves because he's just hit the start of the financial turnover of the year, turning over from April of the first quarter of the year. Therefore, he doesn't have liquid cash. He doesn't have cash just sitting there that he can use to buy a football club. He doesn't have it. He's having to borrow to buy, essentially, and then repay back, or put it on Ineos's books to repay back over time. Now, you get to the stage where you're at now, and Matt Keegan, as you said, G, came out and he stated that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is in the driving seat. He has a more favourable offer to the Glazer family because the offer to own 50% of the club and then the Glazers still retain a 20% stake in the club. Well, the problem with that is, and I've said this before on other fan channels as well, so I'm going to reiterate it on here to your views as well, G.
No, go on, yeah,
if
thanks.
Sir Jim Ratcliffe wants to buy 50%, he can buy 50% of Manchester United, but he cannot control what happens inside the football club. He wouldn't decide on the players, he wouldn't decide on the director of football, managers, nothing. He would just own 50% of Manchester United. The reason why that is because the Glazer family inserted a clause, a Financial Times clause, it was actually Malcolm Glazer who did it, and then Joel and Avram changed the clause, where the Class B, there's two kind of shares inside Manchester United. There's Class A, there's Class B. Class A shares are for minority stakeholders who have no voting rights, therefore have no control over what happens with inside Manchester United. You just own a percentage. Class B shares, this is where the clause was inserted by the Glazer family to state nobody else other than a Glazer family member or a member of that family can own the Class B shares. Therefore, the Class B shares are what control Manchester United. They are the most powerful shares inside Manchester United. I know David Ornstein has reiterated it on 5 Live on Rio Ferdinand's 5 Live channel, where they reiterated those are the most powerful shares and they are 10 times more powerful than the Class A shares within inside the club. So Sir Jim could buy 50%, but unless he negotiates with the two most influential Glazers who have the most powerful shares, which are Joel and Avram, to turn their Class B shares to Class A, and he buys them out, and then they take the clause away, and then they move their shares to Class A, and they let their siblings get bought out by Sir Jim. Unless he does that, and he can do that, he will not have control over Manchester United. Therefore, his proposal that he has now chosen as his main proposal since the last time we spoke, he had two offers. He had 69%, so he wanted to buy all of them. Then he had 50%, keep 20% with Joel and Avram in. He has now chosen the latter option that I've just stated. That is his preferred option because that is the only finances he has in place right now to do. But if he's banking on that, he has to negotiate with Joel and Avram to get them to change the shares. Otherwise, he will own 50% of the football club and he can do nothing about it. Therefore, the Glazers will have their investment in on a much higher scale at 50%, but they will still control Manchester United, even with a smaller minority shareholding of 20%. So it keeps them in power. It keeps them in control of the club. It just means they don't own as much of it and their siblings get bought out. But this is where it's been misrepresented by Mike Keegan. When you talk about evaluation, let's just, for hindsight's sake, Sheikh Jassim, it's been rumoured that his bid was just over £5 billion. Let's round it at £5 billion. So we roughly know what Sheikh Jassim has bid. If Sir Jim Ratcliffe only wants to buy 50% of Manchester United shares, and the Glazer family value it at nearly £6 billion or just over £6 billion, if you convert it to dollars, to buy 50% of their shares, you then have to spend £3.75 billion. So therefore, you are offering them lower fee, but two of them can stay, but therefore, you only own 50%. And the Glazer family will still have control, as I've already said. So effectively, Sir Jim has put a better proposal to the Glazer family, which suits two of them, but he's put less money down. The only reason why Mike Keegan has labelled it as Sir Jim is in the hot seat is that he's banking on that Joel and Avram are still undecided whether they want to stay or go. But I think it's very hard when your children, your siblings around you will get paid billions of pounds while you sit there with 20%. Yes, you still control the club if you don't negotiate and take the clause away. But if you do, your siblings are getting paid nearly £3 billion to be bought out when it's been rumoured that all 6 members who own shares of the Glazer family want at least a minimum of £1 billion each. If that were to happen, Joel and Avram, between them, could make even less money if they were bought out for their 20% in, say, 2-3 years' time by Sir Jim or by whomever. It doesn't matter. So in the short term, and this is why I say Sir Jim's proposal doesn't work, because the Glazer family will only be able to stay and they will still control the club, so that suits them better, and it hinders Sir Jim, but it also doesn't suit the Glazers because their siblings around them are getting paid billions of pounds, where they just stay, and if they allow Sir Jim to control the Class B shares, if they stay with 20%, and Sir Jim has control, they cannot take any dividends. Therefore, they can't be doing what they've been doing for 18 years, taking money out and putting very little in. They can't do it because they don't control the asset. So effectively, it's like your brothers and sisters are being paid £3 billion to be bought out, but you two are sitting there with 20%, which you estimate is worth £2 billion. But depending on how Manchester United do in the future and growth-wise, you could get more money, you could get less money. It can go either or way. And if you don't have control over something that you have got a lot of money that is on the line in terms of £2 billion, if you don't have control of that, and you're trusting somebody who you don't know in Sir Jim Ratcliffe to make Manchester United a success, to make you more money in the long term, that is a worry. Therefore, when Matt Keegan has stated that it is a better offer because he's valued it more, Sir Jim has valued Manchester United more, but on a lower scale at 50%. He's valued Manchester United more than Sheikh Jassim would at 50%, but Sheikh Jassim has valued it at 69%, but more because he's wanting more of the Glazer family shares because he wants to buy all of them out, which is what hasn't been explained. And this is where there's been there has been a blow up.
Sorry to interrupt you, Tom, because you're obviously speaking off the facts. But and obviously just for the benefit of people, John. Obviously, for those who are watching, if you have questions for Tom, please get them. Please get them in the chat. Please let us know if you're watching on Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube, whatever. So from what you're saying, my understanding is that like this whole kind of, because obviously over the weekend there was a lot of like anger and a lot of about the whole idea that Sir Jim could basically just buy out the rest of the family and almost like work with the Glazers. I mean, you can see in the title. But what you're saying, this actually isn't as straightforward as people were kind of making it out, because he almost has to negotiate the type of shares that he wants to gain control of the club, and that the Glazers will have to agree with that. But on top of that, as you rightly said, is that if he buys out the other family members, you've got a situation in your family where lots of other family members have got the equivalent of almost a billion potentially, or up or close to a billion, and your shares, your value might actually be worth that in years' time. So do you think that because of that, the Glazers are still seriously looking? Because from what we're hearing anyway, it's rumored that Sheikh Jassim's bid is above 5 billion. It sounds like it's above 5 billion. Maybe not close to 6 billion, but certainly above 5 billion. Do you think that they are seriously looking at that bid and thinking, okay, hang on a minute, we would rather, or consider we would rather, get close to, because I think there's 6 of them, isn't there? So we'd rather get, almost close to a billion each, was it 800 million or whatever from Sheikh Jassim, so then they'd go the other way. Like, I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, with Sheikh Jassim's bid is the way he has constructed his bid. It's a lot more flexible than people know, in the public eye understand. And the reason why that is, he has put
Oh,
the same
sorry,
offer.
a quick thing. So, I mean, Mecca says, so why are we players getting contracts? So we're getting new owners. I'm assuming that doesn't have much of an effect. Am I correct?
Well, the way that the Glazer family portrayed it is, regardless of the sale, and Eric Ten Hag has stated it in press conferences, regardless of the club's future situation, it's business as usual. So business as usual means player contracts, it means performance bonuses, it means, performance on the pitch. Like, you take what's happening on the field, and that's one side of the club, and what's happening off the field in terms of the sale and the takeover talk. That's for Richard Arnold, that's for John Murtough, that's for the people, if you like, the directors of the club to sort out, and if you like, be the middleman between the team and communicate with the manager and the players on what they can actually do. And at the end of the day, agents are going to want to know what's going to go and happen with their players as well. So it works, if you like, for 4 different parties in the whole roundup of it with the players as well. But yeah, that's what I'd say anyway. In terms of if we're getting like Mega says, if you get new owners and you put people in places, at the end of the day, they're going to want to know who's the owner and who's signing the checks. So
I'll start reading out your comments, guys. So yeah, only one Glazer to go, and what says Barry, and why should the Glazers stay? They are not for people, they are leeching. I think we all agree with that. And shout out to J2 who says big up RDS and Tom. So yeah, so carry on, Tom.
Yeah, well, in terms of what you said with Sheikh Jassim's bid, if it's closer to 5, would it be more appeasing to the Glazer family? With Sheikh Jassim's bid, it's very flexible in terms of he's put 2 different offers, but it's the same number, effectively. And what I mean by that is he's put an offer where you can put £5 billion on the table, but you will be taking, say, the debt along with in that price. So you could put he could put £6 billion on the table right now, but he could say that £6 billion includes what the debt is that is on Manchester United currently right now, and let's just round it up to say it was at £500 million, right? So effectively, the Glazer family and Sheikh Jassim's offer is £5.5 billion. It's £6 billion that he's putting down, but it's including the debt that gets taken over after purchase. So upon him purchasing the club, Manchester United would have then effectively been bought for £5.5 billion because the debt's been taken along with the sale and the purchase. If it doesn't happen like that, and the Glazer family don't take the debt into consideration, which they have no reason to, if they don't really care about the Manchester United in this case, all they care about is the valuation of what they're getting for it. They don't really care of what they leave after it or the aftermath, which if that was the case,
Yeah.
Sheikh Jassim has put is, if you like, a alternative to that in stating, right, well, if you're not taking the debt with you within what I am paying, I will pay £5 billion, or I will pay 5.5. I will pay £5 billion just off of the bat, but that's no debt. Like that's just my offer now. And then upon purchasing the club, he would then probably, like he stated throughout, he wants a debt-free football club. Upon purchase, he would then clear the debt off himself privately and medicinally, and then Manchester United, he would just spend another £500 million. Effectively, it would just speed up the process for him in an ownership where he clears out the debt, but then it also helps him in the long term. But the Glazer family wouldn't really care if the debt was involved or not. And at the end of the day, you would get to the same number of around £5.5 billion with or without debt of what the Glazer family would want, which is roughly in the middle of where Sheikh Jassim is now, if it's rumoured to be £5 billion, which, as I've said and reiterated all along, any journalist that goes out there and tells you a number is waffling, because there is no number, there is no official figures. And if you want any confirming and rumours of that today, the British media jumped on this Sir Jim Ratcliffe story. Like as soon as it came home, you had Matt Keegan, you had people from the Times who were saying roughly the same thing but wording it differently. All the British media jumped and rallied around Sir Jim.
Sorry to interrupt you, Tom, again. Just because, remember, get your questions in, guys. Get your questions in. Obviously, we've got a great source of info in terms of Tom here. RD717 says, "Is this the final round of the bidding process?"
Yeah. There is no more bids after this. They choose a preferred bidder in the next week. I've heard anyway from what I know anyway that the earliest that they can choose a preferred bidder by is the end of this Friday.
Okay.
And the very latest would be probably next Monday, and they would reflect over the weekend. They would probably make a decision over the weekend, then announce it on Monday to the public. Or you don't know, they could do a public statement, but they haven't done throughout the whole process. So
that's true.
I wouldn't probably comment too much on that. But within Sheikh Jassim's bids, like I say, it's open to reflection. So when journalists are coming out and they're stating a number, they don't know the official numbers. Nobody knows the official numbers. And this is why when Matt Keegan says Sir Jim Ratcliffe has valued Manchester United more than Sheikh Jassim, how has he valued it more if you don't know the official numbers? Because if you don't know what they have bidded, you have no clue what they have valued it at. The only thing for us, like any just Manchester United or any person in the world right now who is not within that process, whether it be in a bidder, seller, or advertiser in the Rain Group, knows what the official bids are and the numbers. Therefore, with the Glazer family, when they look at the options on the table, and especially with journalists as well, like Matt Keegan, all Matt Keegan can go off of is what the New York Stock Exchange states. That is how anybody right now can value what Manchester United is worth. If you are not in this process, which Mike Keegan is not bidding to buy Man United, is he? He's just a journalist. And people will say, "Oh well, he'll have sources, he'll have people close to it." Sources and people close to anybody, even say close towards myself now, will not tell me what an official. They will not tell me an official number. Don't get me wrong. We ask what the numbers are. They state, well, under NDA and non-disclosure agreement laws, we can't terminate what the numbers are or speculate what the numbers are. We can just state that a group has bidded, or they have put, we want to include the debt, we want to do this, that, the other. So Jim, instead of going for 69, he wants 50%. Like they're the only statistics that you know and that you can say is how much of the club they want, or what they are willing to do within the club, or what they want to add into their bid or their proposal. Apart from that, you won't know what the number is. So when Matt Keegan comes out and states, well, Sir Jim's valued it more, he might have valued it more, he might have valued it less. Like, nobody knows at the end of the day, because you don't the official numbers. Therefore, when people are getting worried and stuff on social media, especially with Twitter, like when people are getting worried about what Sir Jim might beat Qatar in the race, if Qatar's some people's preference among the fan base, which majority of the speculation everybody states that it is, like Qatar and Sir Jim in this case, like they have effectively been in two separate pools, because Sheikh Jassim has been on a 1 mile sprint to 100% of Manchester United, where Sir Jim's been 69%. Oh, I haven't got the money for it because I've underestimated the value of it. Right, I'm going to have to drop down to 50. And then that means potentially keeping the Glazer families involved in the club in some way. And at the end of the day, when Sir Jim has had to, if you like, recompensate, and as I've already reiterated before, it doesn't make sense for the Glazer family to accept that offer of Sir Jim if they don't have control, and it doesn't suit Sir Jim to use that offer and propose that if he doesn't have control of the club. So it's a lose-lose situation for both parties. That's why that offer, and this is why when the British media and journalists Mike Egan are stating these points, and you're reporting it, you're reporting something that doesn't make sense when you break it down. As like somebody like myself, I've just broken it down for you there. It doesn't suit the Glazers if they don't have control, and it doesn't suit the Gym. So the only way it suits them is if they negotiate and then they change the clauses. Sheikh Jassim is the exact same thing. If the Glazer family choose Sheikh Jassim's offer, and then they go from there and they say, right, you've offered 5. We'll come down to 5.5 if you meet us in the middle, and we'll do the deal here and there. But then it's about negotiation, and then it's about ironing out the details. And at this point in time, right now, there is no preferred bidder. So there is no favourite, as I said to you last time, G. Anyway, there's no favourite. There's no front runner. Nobody's leading this race or process. They're at the same point. But the problem is, because Sir Jim has had to reevaluate his offer, and he's reassessed that he doesn't have the finances to buy 69% right now, because he's dropped down and he's reevaluated what 50% of Manchester United is worth, and he's made that offer. Of course, he's going to value Manchester United differently. He might value Manchester United more at 50% than Sheikh Jassim would if he was doing that. But he's going for 69%. Therefore, when you value it over the 69%, over the extra 19%, or if you want to round it to 20% to make the numbers up, it's an extra billion or two. And as I said before, if it is, like I say, 50% of what Sir Jim wants, if he values it close to 6 billion, that's near enough 3.75 billion pounds. It's very little, but it depends. And like we said last week, it depends on Joel and Avram. And
so Tom, just want to just go into the comments again. So Mega says, why are the Brits so against Qatari ownership? So racism, and then plus Tom, well, we have new owners by June.
Well, in terms of the first sort of area of it, why are the Brits against Qatari ownership? From my personal perspective, I can't understand why, but I understand the reason why they might be. Me personally, I'm impartial. If somebody wants to invest into, a British football team, if they want to invest into an ice cream shop, it doesn't matter. If they're willing to fund something in another country, then you're willing to fund somebody else's economy. You're willing to make a lot of people happy, whether it's selling ice cream or you're selling a match day experience at Manchester United Football Club at Old Trafford. There's no difference to that at all. So at the end of the day, I don't understand that. But it's funny with all these journalists, and I'm not using this to call them out or anything, but a lot of these journalists went over to the World Cup in Qatar. They was fed, treated like royalty, respect, full journalist passes around Qatar, free transport, free accommodation. They did everything to compensate for these journalists. But then as soon as they want anything to do with something in your country where you operate or live in, it's different. And the reason why it's different is because a lot of journalists are afraid of change, because the new ownership at Manchester United won't give them the same sources. It won't give them the same links, and then they have to remake connections. Therefore, you're not connecting to try and get leaks out of the Glazer family. You don't. They have nothing to do with Man United anymore. You then need to get leaks out of Qatar. And when you're reporting in the way that you are, and you're letting your personal opinion get involved in what you actually know or have been told, when you mix the two of them, you work for a news outlet for a reason. For example, one of the main journalists who I can call out straight away now is Miguel Delaney. The amount of stuff and the hatred that has been towards the Qatari bid, but I think, Miguel Delaney, you need to look at yourself in the mirror and understand, for the Independent, who funds the Independent newspaper and news company. It's Saudi Arabia and Russia who fund your news agency, who are the two most speculated nations in the world at the moment for what they are or what they do in their own countries. So be very careful on what eggshells you're treading on, because you're not, standing on eggshells in this case. You're standing on bombs. And at the end of the day, if a Qatari ownership comes in, any leaks or any sources that you have close to the Glazer family, like, you have to try and make new ones. You have to try and restart. So to answer that question, and to make a second question in terms of would no owners be in by June, well, it depends really on how the process goes and how it works. Because if, like we say, a preferred bidder will be chosen soon, if it's Sir Jim, for either of the offers, you will have to negotiate. I will say that now. For Sir Jim, he'll have to negotiate the clause that the Glazer family have with the Class B shares, so he has control, which will take a very long time, as I've already said, because it don't suit Sir Jim if he don't have control, and it don't suit the Glazer family if they have control. So it's very hard to see where somebody's going to pull the guard down. Sheikh Jassim's case is, the only thing he has to negotiate is the price, because he has the money to do the deal and buy all of the shares. So the only thing that he would have to do is agree the fee. That is it. And throughout this process, we've already said the only thing that matters to the Glazer family is the fee. And it comes down to two people, Joel Glazer and Avram Glazer. If those two want to stay, they are going to choose Sir Jim's offer, and they're going to try and negotiate with him about the Class B shares clause and that sort of saga and skepticism. If they want to sell and get the same amount of money that their siblings can get, or similar to them, depending on how they negotiate, then they will choose the Sheikh Jassim Qatari offer, because that is what's giving them the most money at the table right now. And depending, like we say, on what other aspects of the deal become to, like Manchester United by the summer transfer window, at this current stage and the projection of how the sale process is going, will not have a new owner in place. The Glazer family will still be in control, but they might still be negotiating with a party. That might be the Qataris, that might be Sir Jim, that might be a minority group. I think people forget that these people are still involved in the process. So there is still mediums and there is still ways that the Glazer family can choose of whom they want to do business with and who they don't. But ultimately, the only thing is, Sheikh Jassim and Sir Jim, whatever anybody's opinions are of them, they want this resolved before the start of the summer transfer window. That is the message that has been portrayed by both camps. If they don't, they're increasingly worried about the influence they can have straight away if they were to take over.
Well, that's the worry. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. So before I question, RD says, yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure the Sheikh bid is undisclosed, and he says Ratcliffe can't be a true supporter if he's open to keeping the Glazers, especially him being willing to have the Glazers have more voting power than himself. That's an interesting take. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I think there is this fear, because I mean, I'm even hearing that Ten Hag is getting frustrated with he doesn't know what so many other clubs right now are already thinking about what speaking to players and getting in contact with agents and all the rest of it, and Ten Hag probably doesn't even know what his budget is for the summer. So I think it's very, very poor form on the Glazers' part, that potentially where this is being dragged out, because if the rumors are true that that as the preferred bidder they can't even consider talking about transfers and having control and all the rest of it until basically the whole thing is completely completed, which probably isn't going to be until end of May, possibly early June type of period. Then my goodness, like what control, by then, you're thinking that maybe that let's just say Bellingham, for example. By then, Bellingham, for example, is probably already agreed to go to Madrid or Chelsea or what have you. So we're really shooting ourselves in the foot in terms of the transfer race. I don't, so what What do you think? What do you think could happen there, Tom?
Well, in terms of the time scale, like you said, it depends because the way a lot of Manchester United's targets that they have right now, they want their future resolved middle of June, and because of the projection of how you've just stated there that the process could take, you could probably have a deal agreed with a party very latest by the end of May. That's just agreed. That's not owners and directors tests. That's not UEFA's financial and clarity laws. That's not all the different governing body checks and fitness for purpose checks and checking that your finances are legal and not illicit. Like, these things will take weeks, and the problem is Manchester United in terms of the transfer window do not have weeks. You only have, like you say, from the 3 months, and then you get to August 31st, and then window shut. And the way that a lot of the players are, for example, a player that you can use, Alexis McAllister, is a very sought after midfielder in the world of football. His own father has come out and stated to Argentinian news that he wants his son's future resolved by June. He is a Manchester United midfield target at this moment in time. And if he's Erik ten Hag's priority target and he doesn't know if he has the finances to do that deal, then suddenly you're at crosshairs because what's happening off of the field then impacts what's happening on the field. Albeit you're not playing, but you can't plan for the future. As well as with Erik ten Hag, last summer he wanted all of his transfers and signings done to take them on the pre-season tour to Asia. He couldn't do that because a lot of the players that he wanted were in long drawn-out battles at their football clubs. Frankie de Jong, Anthony, like a lot of these clubs weren't willing to let them go at cheaper prices that Manchester United wanted. So they were dragged out in the process. You then get to now, like I've just said with Alexis McAllister, he's a player that Erik ten Hag would like, but he doesn't know if he has the finances for that. A striker, he wants another centre-back, apparently he wants a right-back. Erik ten Hag wants to know what the budget is so he can market around all the different players. And it's not just on Erik ten Hag. The director of football right now is still currently John Murtough. John Murtough will be in the exact same shoes as Erik ten Hag is. Like, not only will I have a job long-term under a new ownership, but I still have a job to do right now. I don't know what the budget is for players. I don't know what, players were looking at in the market, because a new owner could come in and say, right, commercially you have £300 million to spend. Suddenly you can shop in a different market completely to what maybe you were this summer. But it all depends, like you say, on the owner, the timing, and the process. If the Glazers were to stay, the average at how Manchester United could fund this transfer window under FFP regulations and guidelines is around about 150 million. That is all that is to spend this summer for Manchester United. If you were to go to a Sir Jim Ratcliffe, coming in with new investment, but still sticking in the same FFP guidelines, you're looking more at £200 million. If he's willing to invest heavily straight away. Same thing with Qatar. If Qatar were to come in with Sheikh Jassim, he would be willing to invest £250 million straight away because of the FFP guidelines and the financial powers. Like you say, the way FFP works now, it's not, you can't just put X amount into your football club. You have to generate revenues, which then equals net profits, and then it equals a net spend, and then you spend essentially what you earn. That's why a lot of football clubs now are getting around it. For example, Chelsea, where they tie players to long-term contracts, because if you tie them to long-term contracts, you're paying maybe £50 million per year for 10 different players, rather than spending £500 million in the long term over like 6-7 years. So you're buying players for long term, but you're only paying short term. It's if you like, a quick fix solution. But with Manchester United, it doesn't work like that, because they overspent on a lot of the players that they didn't want to last summer. Anthony, for example, you could have got in June. You ended up waiting until August to get the player. Like, you could have got Anthony for €40 million cheaper than you did, and you paid nearly €100 million for him when you could have gone for nearly €60 million in June, because he was being market valued by Ajax at that time. So there is a problem there. and there is a bigger picture to the whole solution, but it depends on the Glazer family because they have control of this situation right now. And at the end of the day, whomever makes the preferred bidder ballot sheet, whether it be Sir Jim, Sheikh Jassim, or a minority group, the other parties are not going to sit and they're not going to wait if something happens or if a deal falls short. When the Glazer family choose somebody, that is it. A lot of the other groups will pull away their offers and say, "You've not chosen us. If it if it goes tits up, like that's not our problem. You should have chosen us to negotiate with, not somebody else." And you have to respect people's reputations in that case. But Sheikh Jassim and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, regardless of what they've evaluated, the offers that they've put in, they would not have come this far in the process. A, if they didn't believe they could do the deal with the Glazer family, but B, if they didn't believe that the Glazer family were willing to sell some of their shares, if not, in Sheikh Jassim's case, all of the shares. Which, like I've said before, Joel and Avram, if they want to stay, Sir Jim Ratcliffe they will negotiate with him on what to do with the Class B shares clause. If they want to stay, that is. If they don't and they want a full sale, the only full sale offer that can give you 69% and can give you the full money and give you the offers that you're wanting, closer to 6 billion or in the middle of 5 and 6, to meet in the middle and negotiate with, Sheikh Jassim is the guy. Because he has the money who can give you the upfront payment now, but can also extend the payments over a longer transparent transaction. But it all depends on what Manchester United's current market value is. And if you base it off the New York Stock Exchange, well, it's a lot lower than a lot of people are bidding.
Yeah, well, of course
but
it
if
is.
If you base it off of what the financials of all parties have looked at, and from the last 2 rounds, from the second round of bids and the third round, they have significantly improved their offers, supposedly in terms of the valuation and the numbers. From doing that, you can then say, well, the Glazer family must have some sort of protection, paperwork, or evidence to state that Manchester United is either worth £6 billion right now, which it doesn't look like it is, or in the long term, over maybe a 4, 5, 6 year plan, if it still states at the same rate it is now, Manchester United would be worth £6 billion in the long term. But like we say, the Glazer family, all parties look at it from the here and now. That's all we can see. You're in the present, you're not in the future. The Glazer family are using the tool of Manchester United is worth a lot in the future. Might not be right now, but it is in the future. That's why we want the offer that we want. And if you're not going to pay near it, then that's the point.
Atoman has a question, just bringing in. He says, question, so based on where we are on the timeline, is it even possible to have a sale complete before the beginning of the summer? Sounds like there's too much to do regardless of what bid is chosen, says Atoman.
Well, how can I say? At this point now, where we are, even without a preferred bidder in place, you were at like 40% of the process. Like, there is a long, long way to go. You're only in a bidding process. When you select a preferred bidder, you get to halfway. You're halfway there. You have a party who is willing to buy. You have a seller which is willing to sell. From there, you then have to agree a fee. That gets you to 60% of the process. You then have to go to do the owners and directors test. That's 70% of the club done. You then have the 80%, which is to satisfy UEFA's laws and multi-club ownership model projects, which then gets you to 80%. You then have 90%, which is the Premier League to check all the financial regulations with the individual and to state that their money is allowed to come into the Premier League at 90%. And then when you reach 100%, the Glazer family sign on the dotted line, and whatever offer they have chosen, the terms and conditions will follow after that offer. Whether they sell, which means they get all the money and transactions that they've agreed upon, or they get XYZ amount of investment in, or they do a deal with somebody like they're doing with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, where they change the Class B shares to Class A, and Sir Jim controls Class B, therefore he controls the club. So it depends what offer and which way you go down the road with it, but that's how it works.
Someone's dog's unhappy. But yeah, no. Remember to like the bit, guys. As we begin to sort of round things up, get your questions in. That was a great question, Tomans. We'll probably go on for another 10, 15 minutes, and we'll obviously begin to round up. Thanks again, Tom, and hopefully we can get you on towards the end of this end this week, for something similar as well. When this whole process hopefully comes to a conclusion. Of Vampire. Jim by United. I'm done with this club, says Ilias. So Ilias clearly is definitely a not a Sir Jim Radcliffe supporter. So just thinking about it again, Tom. Do you because obviously just going back, almost circling back, there was obviously a lot of you saw some of the protests at the club. There was a lot of people didn't particularly like the idea of Sir Jim staying and what he's doing. Do you think that going forward, do you think that that Sir Jim's ownership model, especially considering what he's proposing, is far inferior to say what Sheikh Jassim is offering for the club? Like a lot of people's fear is that Sir Jim is going to basically be like almost like a British version of the Glazers. Do you think that there might be something that there's a truth to that? Or do you think that people are speculating and that what do you think?
The reason, like, you can tell that there must be speculation. Otherwise, why would we be talking about it in terms of is Sir Jim another is he another Joel and Avram? Like, is he another Glazer family? But he's just a Ratcliffe. Like, some people have compared it to Malcolm Glazer, for example, where buys the club on debt, like Sir Jim will have to do if he wants to acquire Manchester United, either at 50% on 69% in the long run. He's going to have to use debt to do it, but he's going to put it on Ineos's books. And like the thing with Sir Jim is nobody knows what he's going to do, and he's not leaked things out. Like, he's not said anything that people don't already know. And as I've said anyway, the way that the personal statements were written when they first entered the process, Sheikh Jassim was very, educated, calculated. He said everything that he wanted to do. You get to Sir Jim's proposal, I want to put the Manchester back into Manchester United. Like, it's almost a love poem. And there's that problem there that was just reiterated and said. But overall, in terms of Sir Jim's offer, he is offered, if you like, from what I've heard anyway, he is offered more for 50% than what Sheikh Jassim would have offered for 50% if that's what he was going for. But because he's going for higher, Sheikh Jassim's offer will be higher, but it's for all of the shares. Whereas Sir Jim Ratcliffe's offer is still it's still a record offer, if you like, compared to what the record offer is right now for a sporting club, but it's not for all of the shares, and it would still keep Joel and Avram in power. But this is where I come down to it in terms of it, because right now, evaluation and numbers doesn't mean anything. The only thing that matters is what Joel and Avram think and what they want to do. If they want to sell, the only solution to sell all of their shares and their sibling shares, because we know the siblings want to sell. If they want to sell all of the shares as a whole family, you will have to go with Sheikh Jassim's offer, because that is the person who's offering that. And he's the only one publicly that is offering that. Sir Jim is offering a way for them to stay. And it suits him, but it also suits them in terms of the offer. But in terms of what they actually get for it, it doesn't suit them. Because both of them will want control, but both of them can't have control. It's either one or the other parties, and that's how it works, unfortunately. So there isn't a proposed offer that's there at this moment in time that suits them, but that's just how it works.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. And it's man, it's this whole takeover process really, I think everyone, regardless of what happens, wants the whole process to be finished as soon as possible. So obviously, there could be some clarity with the season going forward. I mean, United, you'd like to think are probably secured top four. There's obviously there's an FA Cup final to play against City, where hopefully we'll hopefully stop them from winning a treble, which is the only thing that I really care about right now. Making sure that they don't win a treble. Champions League, even I'm like, well, hopefully Real Madrid can do something. We'll see what happens. But I'm saying all these things with the perspective of the fact that, this whole process, I think a lot of people didn't think the Glazers were going to sell Manchester United, but clearly, and I think that was another point I was thinking about how, if this Sajim situation goes in where they take, for example, the partial minority stake, what have you, what does this mean for the stadium? What does it mean for like further investment like that going forward? Like, because everyone knows that the stadium will need redevelopment. Like, what does it mean for that? What does it mean for the academy? All these different things. Like, what do you think, Tom?
In terms of the stadium, as far as I gathered from when he held the talks, Manchester United, the Glazer family anyway, had assigned architects. They assigned the same architects that designed and modelled the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium to do an evaluation of Manchester United based upon rebuilding it on the same plot of land, but also redeveloping it. And since they had those plans presented to them 18 months to nearly a year to 18 months ago, when the Glazer family looked at those proposals, they didn't have the investment in place. Well, they did it personally, but they obviously didn't want to put it in themselves. Therefore, hence the process to get investment, a potential sale, strategic alternatives, as they say. In this case now, the stadium for Sir Jim Ratcliffe, from what I gathered when he held the talks, he was more interested in the redevelopment of Manchester United. The only problem is, whether you wish to redevelop or rebuild, to give people factual information right now, it will take longer to redevelop Old Trafford than it will to rebuild it. And people will say, how is that the case? That is the case because under where the Munich tunnel is, you have the train and tram lines surrounding, encircling the Old Trafford. Manchester United have been in a law battle with the legal council and the train lines, of whom operate on those rail lines, to state, well, we want to build over it. But to build over it, you have to then harbour and dampen what you can actually transport and how many trains you can have running at one time and X, Y, Z and so forth. To redevelop Manchester United, it's not just put a lick of paint on it and say, it's redeveloped. It looks better because the Glazer family have done that. They put a couple of licks of paint on it over the last 18 years, and that's all they've ever done. They will want to extend, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, as far as I'm aware, will want to extend the tiers. He will want to make Manchester United a rounded stadium figure. For example, you have Chelsea, who are looking at doing a redevelopment of a stadium at Stamford Bridges ground. They're looking at maybe a 60,000 seater to round it up to a number. Wembley is rounded up to 90,000. So Jim would look at rounding it up to, say, 75 to 80, depending on what project and how much the costs will be. In terms of either or of the projects, to rebuild or redevelop, it's going to cost over £1 billion. And at the end of the day, Old Trafford is essentially a Tottenham Hotspur with 20,000 more available seats that you could potentially get in. So when you take what Tottenham was built for, £1.1 billion, and then you take that's for 60,000, then you take for what Manchester United could be built for, like you're adding nearly another 15,000 seats. Like you don't just click your fingers and they suddenly appear. Like you've got to develop, there's a lot of moving parts. In terms of Sir Jim, he has stated anyway throughout all of this, the funds are there to invest in the team. The funds are there to invest in the men's team. But that is all he said. That is the only thing he has said that he's willing to do upon purchasing the club. The funds are there to invest in the team, and the current debt that's on Manchester United will be moved to Ineos's books. But he has not stated how much of the debt will be moved. He's never said all of it. He's never said some of it. He's never said it put a percentage on it. He's never said any of that. So upon him purchasing the club, whether it be at 50% or not, the debt would still be attached to Manchester United after purchase. Whereas, like I said before, Sheikh Jassim, he's put two proposals. He's put one where the debt would still be there or where it would be gone within the purchase. Either or. It helps him speed up the process. So Jim, on the other hand, he doesn't have that plan. He doesn't have that project.
Oh,
But
sorry to interrupt you, Tom. One quick thing about this, because that's a good point. A lot of people are talking about Sir Jim's ownership of Nice and how that kind of affects things, in terms of like where his investment goes, but also looking at how he's ran Nice. Do you see some issues or similarities kind of there? Because obviously, a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter go, "Oh, it's Qatar, so, Sheikh Jassim, PSG, don't do a PSG," but no one is really talking about how Sir Jim has run Nice and how if there's any conflict of interest there and all the rest of it. So, do you have any thoughts about that?
in terms of how he's ran Nice, when he went into Nice, he spoke. Every football club in the world has a supporters trust. They have like a panel of loyal and trusted figures of whom in that football club are entrusted by the wider fan base. They're the ones whose name are like attached to the club, and who, if you like, enforce the fans' point of view of the club. When he first bought Nice, I think he bought it for like £100 million from a Chinese investor or
Yeah,
businessman.
I think
I
so.
can't
Yeah.
remember. It was quite a few years ago. But when he first bought the club, he said, "I want to invest in building a new stadium." He's invested in redeveloping uh, OGC Nice, their home stadium. I think it's taken it from 20,000 to like 32,000 or something like that. I think in the region of that. Don't not quote me on that, but he has made investments in terms of the redevelopment of the stadium. He's not rebuilt it or anything. He's redeveloped it and just added more tiers. In terms of the actual investment in players, that is different. When he came in, he said, "I want to turn Nice into a competitor, not a spectator." And when he made that quote, a lot of those Nice fans were on board with him and said, "Oh, great. Britain's richest man at the time, like, 20 odd £1 billion,
Mm,
£1 billion net worth." They
mm,
thought they were getting the dream. They thought they were like a mini Qatar in many cases.
mm, mm,
But
mm.
it's not happened like that. And it's not due to financial fair play, because the French league doesn't have the same laws and revenues that the Premier League put in
Of
place.
course, yeah.
The problem with Sir Jim is he doesn't operate in the UK. He operates out of Monaco, tax free. And people perceive him as being a tax dodging billionaire. The
Mm,
Glazer family are exactly the same. Like, they don't get taxed in America or UK anywhere, because Manchester United's head offices and bookings are registered in the Cayman Islands, tax free. So if they were eventually to sell the club, they get a tax free of whatever Manchester United gets sold for. So they don't have to get any tax taken out of it. So essentially, with Sir Jim and his ownership of Nice, he's made investments in terms of the infrastructure on a smaller scale, because it is not a big worldwide club like Man United, but he's not invested as heavily into the Manchester United team, the Nice team, as they first would have anticipated. I think he's invested. I think he bought the club in 2017 or something like that, around that time. So he's had the club more than 5 years. I think 3 to 5 years, and he's only put in nearly like £200 million. But for that scale of a club, people will say, "Well, that's not too bad," but it's also not good enough when he sold them the dream of being a competitor and not a spectator. Like, Nice are not a consistent runner in the Champions League. They aren't a consistent, competitor within Europe or within France.
no,
They
no,
aren't. Like,
they're
it
not.
doesn't. They're not. And that is what he sold those supporters, and those supporters have actively gone against him. The supporters trust have questioned Sir Jim Ratcliffe and stated, "Look, what is going on? Like, are you willing to invest in more of the players?" And upon consultation with them a year ago, he said, "Yes, I am willing to invest in the players. I'm still committed to the long-term future of Nice." He got to the summer window. He brought in Kasper Schmeichel, who was out of contract at Leicester City, so a free transfer. He brought in Aaron Ramsey, who was out of contract at Rangers, free transfer. He brought in Ross Barkley, of whom was just blown away and washed away ever since his days at Everton. When he was at Aston Villa. Aston Villa paid him off the books, was a free transfer. He made a lot of investments, but just on wages, not on actual transfer budgets. So the problem is with Nice, he has not exactly had a good, appealing record of building a successful team or ownership. The way Nice is run in France should effectively be the way how Brighton is running the Premier League. They have good recruitment on a lower scale, and they make the investments that they need to get the best young players to then have an adaptable style of football going forward. But they don't. That's the problem with Nice. They don't. They have, if you like, the recruitment policy of the maybe Manchester United have had over the years, where they go for an aging profile. They go for experience over youth, which isn't necessarily the case. And when you're in France and you have one of those sort of teams where you can find a Paul Pogba in a youth academy, you can find a Kylian Mbappe in a youth academy. You know, France never fails to bring out generational talents of players. They just don't. It's in their history. It's in their ethics. Like, it happens. But Sir Jim doesn't look at it like that when he owns Nice. That's the problem. And people will say, well, if you're not willing to invest in Nice, who's to say he'd be willing to invest into Manchester United? Well, the way I think Sir Jim would run Manchester United if he was to get the keys, he would try and make Manchester United commercially great again. He would effectively do an Ed Woodward job where focus on Manchester United financially first, get them commercially stable, and Manchester United, when they are stable commercially and the money that they bring in, can self-sufficiently run and compete. If Manchester United was financially run and commercially brought in the sort of money that it should do, and Manchester United were competing again on the pitch and off of the pitch for players and on the pitch in terms of performances and trophies, Manchester United would easily have 250 million pounds to spend every single transfer window. So effectively, Sir Jim, how I could label it is, he would run Manchester United how Liverpool are run with FSG, that he will invest in the stadium over time to time, expand it, modernise it as best as he can, but he won't build a new one. But he will also, whatever the club makes per year, and it cuts down after you pay for your, transfer fees, or if he has debt on the club, whatever's left over is then what the transfer budget is. But if he was to come in, he will not keep the same staff that are here right now. He would want his own CEO. He would want his own director of football, of whom he's already got somebody earmarked anyway. His preferred director of football for Man United would be Paul Mitchell, who's at Monaco and currently looking at leaving at the end of the season. The technical director there. So he's effective. How to say? He's got plans in place, but not big plans. He's not got the Sheikh Jassim plan, debt free, build a new stadium. Straight investment into the men's, women's, youth teams. I want to invest in everything. Local community will have a fan hub centre. I'll probably build my own hotel, like a big bar, restaurant or whatever. Like, he doesn't have those sort of plans. He has plans for United, but on a smaller scale to what Sheikh Jassim has. But in other words, Sir Jim, and the way it's been phrased a lot of the times in terms of all this, for somebody who has a net worth of nearly £20 billion, effectively people within this process have called him a broke billionaire. And what I mean by that is he doesn't have enough billions to buy the club with his own money.
Yeah.
And he doesn't, for the 69%, and even for the 50%, he doesn't have all of it with his own money to buy it.
Yeah.
And people will say, well, that's just like having a broke billionaire. But the only way that Sir Jim still has some sort of a foot in the door is the proposal that he has made. And he has assigned that proposal straight to the eyes of Joel and Avram. And if Joel and Avram want to stay, that is the offer that best suits them to stay, but also gets their siblings out of the door. Whereas with Sheikh Jassim, on the other hand, if he wants to stay, he will not allow the Glazer family to stay in control, in a shareholding of any kind. So if the Glazer family want to sell, and Joel and Avram make their mind up and that's what they want to do, Sheikh Jassim, in theory, should be chosen as a preferred bidder. But, as I've said before, the deadlines are not hard deadlines. Anybody who has an offer that beats Sheikh Jassim or Sir Jim after, even if there is a preferred bidder chosen, G, You could win the lottery, as I reiterated last time, overnight. You could get £10 billion. You could say, I'm RDS, I own RDS, Manchester United Sports Channel, and I want to bid for Manchester United. I'll give you £7 billion. They're going to take that offer.
Of course they will.
Whether there's a preferred bidder, there's no legal contract to state that you have to sell to that person because you've not agreed a deal. You've just picked them. You've just basically picked them out of the playground, essentially, and said that's the person we want to do business with. So there is still complications. And
also, does that mean? Does that mean that if, for example, if they do select a bidder, let's say they select a gym, and are you still saying it's possible that the Sheikh Jassim could still be like, okay, I'll offer you the $6 billion?
Of course he could. Why couldn't he, G? Because like the way you can look at that is, Sir Jim could be selected as the preferred bidder. He could be negotiating with the Glazer family, and so long as they haven't agreed a deal, the Glazer family is still open to all offers. Like Sheikh Jassim wants to go back in and say, I want to make another bid. I will give you closer to it. So I will give you, or he could go to them and say, well, I'll give you the full $6 billion.
Yeah.
But you kick Sir Jim out of the preferred bidder spot.
Yeah.
And you only negotiate with me and me only.
Yeah.
Elsewise, I'm pulling away and I'm walking away. And then you can say that is a take it or leave it. You either take the money now and you get out and you negotiate with me, or I walk away and my offer and anything, my contact details, my bank account, my finances, you don't ever contact me again. I'm done. I'm out of the process. See you later. And Sir Jim could do the same if Sheikh Jassim's made preferred bidder. Sir Jim could suddenly find his wealth from somewhere. He could get his wallet out of his back pocket and say, right, Joel and Avram, I'll make you an offer of this, that, the other, and I'll buy the whole thing. Or some, like you say, G, some random person, some American consortium group like Tom Bowley who waves his bank card around, playing Football Manager. Somebody like that could just come out of nowhere and say, oh, Joel, Avi, like, here's $6 billion. Will you pick me? Pick me, Joel. Pick me, Avi. Like, I've put more money on the table. And at the end of the day, until a deal is agreed and set in stone, there will still be more twists to this tale. There will still be more turning points. And the reason why I will reiterate this in terms of them and the final point in the whole process is that Joel and Avram are the most important people in this process. What they decide to do decides the future of Manchester United Football Club. We can say what we want about the fans' protest that was at the weekend. Yes, it reflected, and they will have seen those protests. Like they've seen them before. They've said that publicly. They've seen the protests. They know what fans think of them. But they don't care.
Of course,
they've held out for 18 years. That's a long time to be hated. Long time to be hated. And you can get out now with nearly one of the, well, it would be a record figure for either of the groups. Sir Jim, Sheikh Jassim, they're making a record offer for a sporting club. And to do that at this time and scale, and the reason why I get what a lot of Manchester United fans is paying is, you've protested for nearly 18 years, you've detested these people for 18 years, and even after this 5-month long drawn-out process, they could still decide to stay, whether it be with Sir Jim, a minority group, or whatever. Or they might not be able to agree a deal with Sheikh Jassim, and they say, right, it's a no sale, we're pulling out. We'll stick with what we've got, and we'll run the club as it is. That can still never be ruled out. So there is a problem in that case, but we've got to see anyway.
Fair enough. Okay, final question, and we'll just round up. So, if anyone's in the chat, if you have your questions, then let me know. Or David got a comment in saying they're taking Jim's offer. It has the most advantage for them, and with more TV money coming to league and with our trajectory, they stand to gain more money if they stay than leave. Says David T. Just quick thoughts on that, Tom, and then I want to ask you a final question. As basically, what is your preferred owner taking the club forward, basically? And then Mega says the Glazers are too greedy to let go of this club. But yeah, what are your thoughts on David T's comment? And then who's your preferred? And then my question is, who is your preferred owner to take Manchester United going forward?
Well, in terms of David T's question, it does pose a good point, because the advantage for them is that they would get more TV money, but the negative to that is that they wouldn't get as better sponsorship deals because they don't completely own the club. And Sir Jim having control would mean that they only have 20% of the club, and it would mean, and Sir Jim's making that offer he's making the offer based upon he wants control, and if he doesn't get control, he won't want it. He will not make the offer. He will withdraw. He will pull out. He will renegotiate terms of his offer. Like, he's going to have to assess things and relook, like he already had done where he undervalued the club. So, in terms of the Glazer family staying, if the Glazer family do not get control under Sir Jim's offer, they will not accept Sir Jim's offer at this point in stage, unless they are willing to negotiate. But if they pick Sir Jim and then he's made the preferred bidder, they can say, "Oh yeah, we want our Class B shares, right? We want another 200 million. We want, X. We want another percent. We want another 5% of the club from your stake, or something like that." Like, these people will say these things. They will try and twist the knife. It's not going to be smooth and easy as people think. The one thing you can always say to the Glazer family is, whenever it was going to end, it was always going to end in tears. And they were never going to walk out of the door satisfied. And even if these guys walk out of the door with the full 6 billion that they want, G, they still won't be satisfied, because they think, "Oh, could we have got more? Could we have done more? Could we have made more?"
Greed.
Yeah, and it is greed. It is greed. But even with these people with the full £6 billion, if they even get that, like, the full £6 billion, you can't take it with you to the grave. So even if all members of them get £1 billion each, you can't take the £1 billion with you to the grave, guys. So enjoy it while it lasts, because it won't last for very long. And in terms of your question to me, G, myself personally, I don't have a preferred owner. I'm not bothered about Sir Jim personally, or Qatar personally. I just want what's best for Manchester United. And my morals and principles, when they first set up this process back in October, 5 months ago, and they said strategic alternatives of new investment, a sale, or a prolonged investment into a remodeling of the stadium. When they said those 3 points, I immediately took out of the sale. You have to sell the club. And you have to sell it to somebody who will come in, first and foremost, put Manchester United on a level playing field, make it debt-free. They have to, whoever comes in has to immediately, within the first 2 years, either start building a new stadium or redevelop the current one we have. The third principle for me was we have to invest in all our teams, not just the men's team.
Yeah, of course.
I want somebody to come in and invest in the women's team. I want somebody to come invest in the men's team, in the youth team. I want all developments into it. And my fourth and final principle of any owner was the training ground. Leicester City Football Club sold Harry Maguire for £80 million, G. Do you know where that £80 million went? They built a new training ground for £80 million, and it's better than Manchester United's.
Of course.
Leicester City, of whom could get relegated this season. So a Championship club potentially next season could have a better training ground than Manchester United. That is disgraceful.
It's disgusting.
Any young player, any young lad in Manchester ain't going to look at Manchester United and Carrington and think, "That's where I'm going to go." They're going to look at City and think, "Wow, look at the complex. Look at the sports science. Look at the, rehydration, the redevelopment." Like, they're going to look at that. And out of the 2 offers that are at the table right now, the one that best suits what I believe is best for Manchester United is the Qatari offer, because they have said literally everything that I would want. But beggars can't be choosers at the end of the day. So even if we landed with Sir Jim, you've still got to support Sir Jim, whether you love it or hate it. Because if Sir Jim was to come in and keep the Glazers for 2 years, but if he said, "I'll keep them for 2 years, then when I have the money, I'll buy them out," like I think a lot of Manchester United fans would swallow their pride and suck it up.
Mm,
And if he did follow through and he did buy them out in the end, and then they have no affection to the club, he has essentially done a full takeover, but it's just been a long-term takeover. But Manchester United have always had things long-term. They've never had something short-term in terms of owners, where everything goes quick and smoothly. They don't do that. So for me, in terms of what's at the table, people can talk about ethics and morals. Yes, you have to prescribe that to the Qatari offer. But do you really think Sir Jim Ratcliffe became a multi-billionaire on ethics and morals when he owns a petrochemical company, which we know about pollution, exhausts into the world, and you can point the same thing at Sir Jim. Well, greenwashing is a thing nowadays, just as much as sports washing is with Qatar. So
it's mega sick. Yeah, RVP son, Andy Cole son in the City Academy. No one takes Carrington seriously. Dan Fletcher son is exactly. So
yeah,
this
well,
is the guy who's was it sporting director or something like that at a club, and his own son is at the City Academy.
well, he's a technical director, but Darren Fletcher's like I think he's like a youth coach or something now. I think at Man United, I can't remember anyway. He's not. I don't think he's as influential as people first thought he was. What his job title states anyway.
Tom Dream Investor and David T. Lancer says also from where I come from, an effective protest is usually weeks in progress and less harmonious. Not just a 30-minute walk around the city. All the Glazers will do is change the channel to tune it out. And then David T. lastly again says the problem with Sir Jim is that even Nice fans are complaining about his ownership as well. And imagine him dividing his resources on two. Yeah, we've already kind of spoken about that and touched on that, David T. Early in the conversation, but I'd certainly recommend because we've had a very, very good and in-depth conversation with Tom right here on the channel about where we are, the sort of misinformation that's out there from a lot of the British journalists and their thoughts on the whole takeover process as well. Thank you, obviously, guys, so much in the comments as well. I'm to like and share and subscribe to the channel as well. Tom, I want to thank you again for coming on the channel. Really, really appreciate it, Tom. And we'd obviously, with from what you say, we should potentially get a decision on the preferred bidder. Is it by Friday or
Earliest Friday, latest next Monday.
Okay, awesome. So I think what we can try and do is we'll probably get either another update show either this Friday or possibly this same time again Monday. I think if we're close to hearing something, announcements going to be coming soon. We'll have the show on Friday evening. If not, then we'll obviously put the show back to maybe Monday, for example. But yeah, thanks again for coming on, Tom. Really, really appreciate it. Make sure you follow him on @TomJournalist1 on Twitter. He's probably one of the most reliable journalists I know because he doesn't sort of post things for likes and tweets and actually tries to sort of get his sources correct, which is surprisingly in the 21st century is actually quite difficult considering how many journalists want to basically spin things to their own agenda, unfortunately. But yeah, thanks again for coming on the show, Tom. Really appreciate it. Thanks everyone in the chat as well. Remember to subscribe if you're new, not only to Red Devil Studio, but Red Devil Studio Extra, and obviously follow us on Twitch as well. Have a nice day, everyone. Peace out and cheers. Peace.